Thank you so much for staying with us. So our first conversation is to put an eye on the budget of 2025. President Bola Tinubu initially presented a proposed budget of 49.5 trillion naira for the 2025 fiscal year to a joint session of the National Assembly in December 2024. But in February, the president requested an upward revision to 54.2 trillion naira, citing improved revenue performance by major federal agencies. But in an 18-page report released Tuesday, budget indicated that the National Assembly included 11,122 projects, representing 12.5% of the 54.99 trillion naira signed budget without adequate justification or alignment with national development goals. In case you missed it, well, that's why we're bringing this to you. We have three gentlemen to converse with us on this morning. Let's begin with budget. Gabriel Okewo is here with us. He's Country Director, Budget Nigeria. Thank you for
Thank you very
being here
much
with us. Olusegun Okwande is also here with us. He is a Chartered Accountant and Public Affairs Analyst. Thank you for your time.
Good morning, I'm glad to have you.
And we also have Professor Okey Ikechukwu, Executive Director of Development Specs Academy. He joins us from our Abuja studio. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Prof.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Okewo, let's begin with you. This is May, almost ending, and this report just came out. Is this something we missed, or it's just about now that we are putting our, to use the word we use on the street, torchlight on this matter? Because there was a public hearing on the budget, and then there was what they call budget explanation or something like that, budget analysis after the president presented it. Is it that we missed it, or it was just the apt time?
Okay, so report coming out now, I will believe that you are making reference to maybe the release of the report from budget about insertion of insertion from the National Assembly. And the report being released now is a function of when the approved budget for 2024, when the for 2025 was approved, right, and then when it was made public, and the accessibility that this has to the citizens before we can then begin to do our own work on it. I mean, this is May. The report came out in May. That's 5 months already into the year. But you recall that the budget itself didn't come out, was not signed into law till March, thereabouts. And even after then, like what we have seen in the recent past years, where immediately the proposed budget is placed in the National Assembly, or the approved budget, the budget is approved by Mr. President, we immediately have it on the website of the Budget Office of the Federation with access to the document. That didn't happen almost immediately. It still took a lot of, requests before we eventually have the budget. In fact, it took almost 2 months. What was in circulation after we had, all Nigerians had, that the budget has been approved is the National Assembly version of the budget, right?
Which is not the signed, which is not the law.
Which is not the law. It was the one communicated by the National Assembly to the presidency. It was sometimes in April thereabouts that the Budget Office of the Federation posted or uploaded what we then consider the approved budget on their website. And even by the time you had access to that, you then realize that, we have been taken back a little in the progress we have made in terms of transparency and accountability, because this version of the budget you now have on the website of the Budget Office of the Federation is not machine readable. As a matter of fact, it is not a PDF copy, right? It is a scanned paper document, PDF. So what we have there, or what we had, is as good as a photograph of over thousands of pages of budgets. Now, you can then look at our job as an organization that has a mandate to, analyze the budget, what it would take us to convert pictures
into
to documents, right? To machine readable
documents.
And then what it will take us to validate all lines to be sure that we have not made any error in conversion. All of this process could have been averted just by the government uploading a machine readable format. And that is the difference when we say information is available, but it is not accessible. Because this information that is available, yes, on the website of the government, is not accessible, because you cannot go in there and search Channels TV and it comes out, because it's pictures. It can't give you, it can't respond to
So that's the reason for all of the delay.
So it will take time for us to do the conversion, validate the data before we now start our own analysis on it, and then we'll release the report.
Mr. Okwade, first of all, the budget was signed in February. And then after that followed all this that he's talking about. So no work could be done on that budget for some time. This is May. Q2 is already halfway gone. So what does all this say about the implementation of the budget of 2025? How are we implementing it when we didn't even have a budget yet throughout the month of January?
Thank you very much, Sister Lero. We've said 8 times with that number that our problem, a lot of people that yearn for policies, redrafting and doing a lot of things, I ask them and I do tell them that our problem is always implementation of whatever we have. And you don't blame it on the citizen, you blame it on the handlers, who you ask the question, do they even understand what they themselves are doing to give deliverable to the people? What my brother just asserted now, it takes someone who understands what he needs to do, that you dare not upload a picture. I can't send a scanned picture to you for a document I expect you to analyze. As a finance person, it's as good as I reproducing those things, which amount to I committing some errors in the process. And that's why what I feel you paid is to set a trap for you, to say in the process of actually reproducing, because you are going to reproduce those data on your own before you can analyze. And in the process, you are bound to make errors. While you now make the errors, they go ahead and wait for you to attack you back that the information you are providing to the citizen is actually misleading, knowing fully well that you created that misleading act by not providing the right document for them. So most of the time we ask the people at the end of our fear, do you even understand what you need to make available? Because this budget, even constitutionally, is to be made available for everybody to have access to, have understanding of it, and be able to monitor when you talked about some of those things.
Maybe
so we
they don't want any analysis done.
If you don't analyze it, then how do you expect us to speak to it? If we don't analyze some of the things that are actually going on, for us to even criticize objectively, because most of the time I say criticism is not about you even challenging the status quo. You might have some valid point to support what they're actually doing and use your own ground. Like Budget 8 has their own coverage, where you can use your position to influence government policy. There are fantastic things I will always tell people that they are doing. You can use your forum, you can use your coverage to actually put the ball. When you cannot have analysis of what is actually there, what are you going to tell the people? You're not going to say anything rather than coming to say, we are still looking at it. So you can imagine if mid-year we are just having an enroll into the budget that is supposed to, so what has happened in the last 5 months? It has impacted on the citizen themselves.
I'm even wondering how budget is able to read, produce these documents within less than 2 months, because you got it in March, you said, and then you read all in April, and still produce these documents just last week. Anyway. Prof, we are not going to the real meat of the matter yet, but just this whole process. We'll begin with the meat of the matter, itself. But this whole process, what do you make of it?
Speaking about the process, I think I'll begin by asking about budget performance. We were all recipients of the public information to the effect that last year's budget, I think, performed, was it 40%? Oh. Our questions being raised about the 60%. What has been the performance of budget in the last 15 years? If you study those budgets, and I think Budget Office will also admit that, you find that a good deal of the time is a reproduction of the old, and programs presumably executed and implemented in a previous budget also come into the present. I thought I should put that on the table. The other point I'll put on the table is that this is May. We're nearly halfway through the year, like Alero pointed out. This is second quarter, coming to an end. When are you going to implement the budget? How much of it will have been carried out by November, December, and you do another budget? Are we worried about the fact that sometimes AIE's authority to incur expenditure takes over from actual budgeted expenses, such that you say, oh, Defense Ministry has been given 10 trillion. You find out that only 4 was given to them, was released, and nobody talks about it, what happened to the rest. So I thought I should put all of that out and then come to the substantive matter. When you send out a document that's not machine readable, not readily accessible, you delay the process of evaluation, you delay the process of oversight establishments, you make public communication difficult, and you make government and governance opaque. It doesn't help. It doesn't drive credibility. It diminishes all of us, particularly the National Assembly, and it suggests a level of bureaucratic incompetence that should not exist at certain levels. Worst of all, nobody seems to be under fire for this. How can this be? And in any case, for me, it shouldn't really be now that we are hearing this. At the moment that was produced, I believe that if I was part or head of an organization that's supposed to do this evaluation, I will probably be thinking of a press conference, having written correspondence, and it's not coming, they're not sending me the original. I don't have to do a press conference, I use the media. There are civil society organizations who are partners. They can raise questions about not just availability, but accessibility of public information. Citing this as an example, mentioning the number of pages, mentioning the applications that can actually convert those pages to readable Word documents, pointing out the challenges even when that is done, etc. It will put some heat on the National Assembly without appearing to be coming from budget. I thought all of this should be put in context. Those will be my initial remarks, that we cannot go on like this. It will not aid development. Budget is not a document. It is a law to be, implemented. So failure to implement is actually unlawful. And when you make a law, all the provisions are not accessible. Much of it is not carried out. You say, oh, we carried out 40%. And everybody carries on the next year or the next day as if nothing happened. It says a lot about the attitude to governance.
So, Prof, quickly, before we go to the issue on the table, and rightly put, the budget is a law that should be implemented, or rather, must be implemented. And over time, we have seen that it's almost always implemented in breach. Who should be asking questions? One of the issues that I've always had with this, look, there is always a budget defense process at the National Assembly. So I come to you, I say, okay, this is how I dealt with the previous law, previous budget that was given to me. I didn't really perform very well, and then I go away. And the following year, you're still assigning money to me. You're still budgeting money for me. I come to you to defend my budget for this new year, even though I couldn't quite persuade you what I do with the previous budget that I have come, and then I have come to defend another one. Who should be asking those questions? Who should be putting their foot down and saying, no, you didn't do it right? Because I can't imagine myself. I can't even imagine you, Prof, as a business person. You gave money to someone, the person didn't quite account for it, and the person is coming to ask you for more money.
Yes, there are institutions of state that have that responsibility. But because this is a political environment, so let's spread, or if you like, democratize the conversation. The political opposition in this country has been performing with spectacular lack of capacity. They make press releases to grumble about something. This is the kind of thing on which you gather the data, gather professionals or consultants around you, address the nation, give a State of the Nation address. And national resources for the year 2024 were put together in the name of the people and for the people by those who represent them. Out of that quantity, this has not been implemented. What we are hearing from budget now should have come from the opposition, civil society organizations, concerned citizens, etc. Those are the things. And also presidential liaison. There is a presidential liaison with the National Assembly. That office or that department or that unit has a duty to maintain the reputation and image of whoever is president by monitoring the outflows. When your boss gives out, has signed out on something, there should be enough feedback for him to know that his image is not likely to suffer due to non-implementation, distortion, or limited implementation. So it's not for budget, oh, because he's come to speak, we're all jumping up and down. We're Nigerians. Nobody has superior citizenship. Anybody can speak about it, but I believe that people, organizations, and departments and agencies should think of coalition of what I call public interest organizations, so that these things are, okay, the budget has come out. Yes, this is what we noted. Oh, the original copy has come out, and there's an extra 11 trillion added to it, and the reason is that, oh, there's improvement in revenue. Oh, no, we don't think so. Does it mean that a man, once he earns more money, he should go to spend more after determining what to do within the year? These are the kind of questions that will drive democratic consciousness.
Okay.
So the opposition, civil rights activists, and agencies like budget that should partner civil society and use them to put out their point of view so that it doesn't look like government attacking government. Those are the things that should happen. Most critically, the media. And that's why it's exciting that this topic is on the table in channels, because without it, without these conversations, without the media projecting the crisis of governance in the Federation, all of us will just be carrying on. And critically, this is May. Have we asked ourselves whether the average Nigerian knows there's a budget? Whether he will feel bad if there's none? Whether if you don't do a budget for the next 3 years, anybody will complain substantively? I mean, remove the the manufacturing sector and the forex dealers. Who in your village knows about budget? So there are so many things that need to be drilled down that's not happening. And parties are not creating membership by driving ideological consciousness. All that put together will be part of the challenge I see on the table.
Okay, Mr. Okewo, some are saying that there's no way that this budget can be implemented like it should, because there's some basic assumptions which were made, starting with the production of crude oil, the price of the crude oil, and the price of the exchange rate. All those things are not happening. Then we wasted a lot of time again. How are we going to implement this budget?
I mean, that is a major concern. And just before I answer that, to speak to what Prof said, budget is not budget. Budget is not government. Budget is a civil society organization, and we are a public interest organization. Everything we do is for the people and in the interest of the people. And that's why we are doing this. So whatever comes from budget should be seen as coming from the people, right? And I mean, that's one of our concerns. It's funny that what people are saying is most, that is dominating the media, is the 11,000 insertions of National Assembly that we released on Tuesday. But on Monday, day before that, we had actually released the federal government budget analysis for 2025, right? As we have always done in the last 14 years. And these are some of the issues of revenue that we raised in it. 36.35 thereabouts revenue approved for this year. We're asking because in our analysis of this budget, we could not find specifically exactly where will this money come from, particularly when we look at the fiscal framework, the assumptions upon which, this budget has been designed. And these are some of the things that are critical, right? That should be a page dedicated to how this revenue will come realistically. But we'll understand that in the last many years, I mean, I can't put a date to it, but date it back to 10 years or more. Nigeria has never achieved its revenue target, right?
Okay.
Up until 2023, right? I think
so
was
we were operating on borrowed money.
Right, so we'll make revenue target of 2 billion or 2 trillion, we'll achieve 500 billion.
Wow.
And then the next year, instead of you to then, that should show you your capacity, right?
Down.
And take it down the next year to go from 2 billion to 4 billion and to 4 trillion, and then you will make 1 trillion. And it keeps going like that until maybe 2023 was the first time that, according to the books of government, we could see that we exceeded our revenue target by 113%.
Wow.
And that is very clear why that happened.
Why did that happen?
Was the year that this administration came into power, and the statement subsidy has gone, happened, and then, I mean, we could attach that to it. And then I believe that would have given this government hope that suddenly so much money is available, right? As by the reports that we have in the public, as of June 2024, the government had made 8 trillion in revenue. And the projection, the target for 2024 was 25 trillion. So if we, by the time we see the closed book of 2024, maybe they would have surpassed, the 2025, we wouldn't know. But now that brings us to 20. So somehow this government believes there is money to be made. I mean, there are policies they are putting in place and money is coming.
That will make us make money.
Prof was saying. In fact, the budget didn't start from 49 trillion. The budget actually started from 47 trillion or 46 trillion. That same day, the statement that was read by Mr. President on the floor of National Assembly was either 46 or 47. And in less than 2 hours after that presentation, it went from 46 to 47, 49. Then from 47 to 49, then from 49 to 54, right? Then from 54 to 54.9 that now eventually got approved. So for the first time, you will see those discrepancies. And the question, I mean, let's just narrow down the last one that jumped from 49 to 54. It was a case of, the executive had looked at his book again and it's looking like, we are going to make more money. If we are going to make more money, does that warrant that we should spend this more money? What happened to us reducing, some of our debts and all of that? And I'm sure, I mean, the government will be somewhere saying, they pay back IMF loan and all of that.
Isn't that significant?
Don't let us go into that conversation yet, because it might be beyond the surface level. And it's fine. I mean,
but I am interested in it.
To the ordinary Nigerians, yes, we own many entities. One of the entities we own, we have paid completely, and the entity too had come out to mention that you are no longer indebted to us. We thank them. That is a good one. We will take it away from
PNID?
The IMF.
Okay.
Loan. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's a good one. We are thankful for that. But let's come to this budget, because if we are not careful, we'll make this conversation sentimental around insertion. This is about governance. This is about credibility, right? You cannot keep making assumptions that you don't meet, and then year on year you keep increasing the assumption. And let me put it in context. In 2015, when President Buhari came into power, former President Buhari came into power, the budget of Nigeria was 4.5 trillion thereabouts. In 2025, we are talking about 54 trillion. So if you just do a quick math, that means that our budget has increased more than 1,000%, right, in size, as our revenue increased in that same size. If we look at the average life of our politicians or people in government, you and I will know one or two persons that we can say that their life, from what we can see, right, has improved significantly from 10 years ago till now. Can we look at many ordinary Nigerians or many of our communities and say that our communities has transformed significantly or has developed significantly compared to 10 years ago.
Thank you so much. Mr. Okewo, beg your pardon, Mr. Okwade. One of the issues that I always have, and I'm sure that Prof is going to come for me for this, one of the issues that I always have is many times when we're talking about budget, we're looking at the federal government of Nigeria. I really wish I had all the numbers of all the budgets of every state government in Nigeria. I'm pretty sure it will be more than 54 trillion naira.
Of course. The federation budget, yeah.
Good. Now, if we were to calculate that, it would seem like it's a slap on the wrist kind of situation that we're giving the governors, the state governments. Because if anything is going to be significantly, any development, that the issue that Mr. Okewo just raised about how much different the life of the average Nigerian has been, shouldn't it be from the direct impact of the budget of their state governments on the people's lives?
Ayo, you are spot on this. And I think before my friend Taiwo became chairman of fiscal policy, it's one of the areas that we always concentrate on. And I know budget has actually prone into that to see how many of these state governments do we have access to their budgets? How many do we even criticize the same way they've criticized federal government budget? Because we believe that they are closer to the people. If development must happen, it must start from them to the local government. And I must give kudos to this administration. I think Mr. President understands the dynamics. And when he came in, removed the subsidy removal, he concentrated more on giving more to the states. But how much have we asked questions from the state budgets? A lot of them ask more money. The only thing we are hearing is that we are able to repay back our loan. What impact are you giving to the citizenry of that particular state? Because I keep saying, if much is being given to the state now, we should start having decongestion in Lagos State, where everybody will feel that Lagos is the center of excellence, and that's where it must happen. What are happening in other states, suburb? I said, if you look at the Southwest, we have this connection that if you develop other states, you can migrate. Those people that travel, you travel as via train, where you reside in certain area, work in certain area, and make that development to happen. So you can imagine if we call Lagos the commercial nerve center, and I'm residing in Ondo, and I have a train system, because people move 2 hours in UK, US, to where they reside. So you can imagine if you have a train system, collaboration between, let's say, Ondo State and Lagos State, where I can reside in Ondo, work in Lagos. What that implies is that I will not be paying my payee to Lagos State because I work here, and the payment of taxes is based on my residence. So I'm generating revenue to Ondo State, where I reside, where the company I work for give Lagos State the revenue that they are going to get from the organization that I work for. So you can see the synergy. But most of the time, we concentrate and put so much pressure on the federal government. A lot of us have been saying it, that at what point do we start challenging the state government on their deliverables? There was one time Enugu state government came and said they gave kudos to the present administration, that so much that they've been given, they've been able to utilize in developing some of the projects that Mr. President came to open. What is happening to the local government autonomy? The Supreme Court gave that verdict. Have we seen implementation of that particular thing happening? The answer is no. And you can imagine the roads that leads to his house to my house. It's not the function of the state governor. It's the function of the local government that are going to do it. How much? So we have a lot of laws, policies that we have there on paper. But when it comes to implementation, it comes to how much can I get off my own? And that is the major problem that we have as a nation. It's high time we start putting our eyes on the state governors, on certain things that they are actually
touchlights.
Like Ayo was saying, let's put touchlight
on the state,
so that we can start having questions bordering around them. Because if the state is developed, we have less concentration to the federal government, and everybody will be beneficiary of that.
Let me ask you, Prof. One of the things that I was hoping we'll be able to, we could make happen, is this thing called collaboration. And a good number of times I've had to ask various people, is there a cooperative developmental handshake between the federal government agencies or ministries and departments and the state governments in a way that is progressive, is developmental. I once asked a governor, former governor now, I asked him, look, there is this NDDC. I mean, it was an interview. Was this NDDC? How can it tell that they just come into your state, they don't talk with you? How can they just do that? I mean, isn't there some kind of carry along that the NDDC should be able to carry the governor of the state along? What I heard the governor say was, Ayo, you see, that statement, carry along, has many implications, and I don't know what that meant. But I think it's quite important. What do you think? I mean, the budget from one state should have a handshake of sorts with the budget from the federal government in a way that people will feel the direct impact within the shortest possible time.
The national planning should be and had been in the past very comprehensive, whereby what's going on in one state and one part of the federation is perceived in terms of its multiplier effect on nearby economies, continuing downwards, how it will happen in 5 years. So specifically to your question, yes, there ought to be collaboration. But if I say there ought to be collaboration, it would suggest that there isn't. There is. And I'll take just two areas. The UBEC, you know that primary education is the responsibility of state governments. So the UBEC office and the UBEC initiative, everything about UBEC, is a collaboration between the federal government and state governments by way of counterpart funding. The federal government brings something, the state governments bring something as an incentive to drive education at that level. But the question you ask yourself, why is it not working? The federal government puts in some money in some states. The states will collect the money, they won't even use it for education, and then they won't bring their counterpart funding. So for next year, they can't come because they've not accounted for it. In fact, that's also the problem for universities are having with TED Fund. So that one is there. There's no question about it. But remember also in a political environment like ours, where many of the actors are not, with all due respect, sufficiently mature to think of development rather than hegemony, they want to say, I did this. Okay, Ikechukwu agenda, Ayo agenda, Alero agenda. Forgetting that the issue on the table is development and it doesn't have to carry anybody's name. A good road is a municipal function. It doesn't have to be spectacular. You don't need to spend further people's Nigerian money putting on the road, constructed by Mayegun and all of that. So on the question of collaboration, yes. But remember also we're running a federation. It can only be a conversation and a partnership. The comments about NDDC is typical because it's a matter on which I've had to dwell a couple of times, both in public and private. I've always held the view that organizations like NDDC ought to be scrapped. The money to the state should go to the state government. Let them mismanage it if they must. They have their people to deal with, if not immediately, 3, 4, 5, 10 years down the line. So as you create these agencies, you're actually not creating collaboration. You're creating silos for elite who lost out in elections to have access to funds that are nearly the equivalent of funds for running more than one state and still live at that level and spend a little more. You see, that's why our budget keeps getting bigger. So on the question of budget, one thing to consider, yes, we are now doing so many trillions, but check the value of the Naira when Buhari came in, then check the value of the Naira today, you may find that we're actually budgeting less in substantive terms when we're looking at dollars. The other element is that even when you think of partnership between state and federal government, government expenditure is now on what I call discretionary expenses, and I'll use an everyday example. Food is mandatory. You must spend on food, you must spend on shelter, you must buy soap to have a bath. You can't decide that, okay, I'll stop spending on food. It won't work. But you can decide to stop spending on cigarettes, you can decide to stop spending on buying 10 newspapers instead you buy one. Now, if you look at most of the things on which the federal and state governments are spending, they fall into what can be conveniently described as discretionary expenses that need not be there. Check the rate at which vehicles are changed, residences are renovated, among other things. So back to the substantive issue of partnership. Partnership already exists. But the partnership that will yield the kind of result we are asking for is issue on the table, because when you have an event at the state capital, is reported in the media, oh, we are doing this to help rural women, and the women who are ruralizing the place, to use the expression, I think I heard you say comporize. So let's start to form words. So people who are in cities are not in touch with the people. So let's not say there's none. There is partnership. The question is whether the partnership is yielding the desired results. There's nothing with the state governments taking loans. The question is, after the loans have been taken, what have they been used for? Go and check records of all the loans they've taken in the last 5-10 years. Do you see any impact on the ground in any form, apart from government records? And do you find out, like you said, that some people in public office have become a little more comfortable because of the way they are, but their communities are still the way they were in the 70s? So yes, partnerships exist. Deliverables from partnerships is what will make it reassuring for the people, not just the mountain of it. UBEC is a particularly spectacular embarrassment because the amount of money that has been pumped into that and the amount of it that doesn't return benefit to the schools in nearly all the states is monumental. And you know, I've been involved in that, where we found that because these allocations are done to specifically named schools in areas. You find a school, for instance, where 2 million naira was allocated at a certain point. You go for inspection, you find that the money was very well spent. They spent the money painting the headmaster's office, and the rest of it, nobody knew where it went in so many places. So that's the danger. Elite predatory disposition towards public funds and its usage, that's the danger. That's what damages even the existing partnerships at the level of governance, at the level of institutional strengthening, at the level of social infrastructure.
Let's staying with you, Prof. I want you to just react to this. According to the budget report, a significant portion of the budget expansion was influenced by legislative insertions. And it goes on to list some of those insertions. How is it that our legislature can inflate the budget at will?
It is very simple. When you run a democracy where negotiation for personal or group interest takes precedence over developmental issues, you come to me. Ordinarily, that shouldn't happen. You say, look, even though you're in the executive, remember we're all contesting elections. So I need to put something on the ground. I want constituency projects. You know, that generated a lot of heated debate 5, 10, 15 years ago. I think even long before Jonathan. And we need constituency projects. Let our people see what we also are doing so that we'll use it to argue that they should vote for us. No problem with that. Now, the insertions, and that's why I think that sophistication is also needed when you want to do certain things. It is blatant. If you have some positions, submissions, you know that the executive will prepare a budget. And then you wait until the budget is presented. What's the liaison between the presidency and the executive and the legislature? So you see the balkanization of the concept of governance. We're on this side. When they finish, let's do our own. You forget the optics that people are looking at, asking themselves. First of all, procedurally, in principle, it's not right that this should happen. Secondly, even in sessions should be negotiated and agreed upon. But because public interest is alleged not to be the primary driver of some of these interventions, you then find that they stick out like sore fingers. Not only do they stick out, you can't find, like budget has confirmed and discovered, you can't find their social value. And in the end, it's like the name of the people is being taken in vain and plain robbery is being carried out. Because you ask yourself, after that when we spend that 11 trillion, you talk of deliverable, what are we going to go home with? That's what budget said. We don't see what we are taking home. And that's what Nigerians have been saying all along. 11-point-something trillion, yes, on projects that are neither priorities, which if you don't spend on many of them, nothing will happen. That's why I say that we keep padding discretionary expenses we don't have to make, expenses which, if we don't make, nothing will happen. They are taking precedence in most of our budgeting. And you look at it, you compare capital with, what's the other one, and you see it's not looking too good. So yes, that's where the challenge is. It shouldn't happen. If it had to happen, it has to be, because there's one government. The agencies ought to discuss together. If you're politicians, you must have enough sophistication to negotiate behind closed doors so that a document comes out in the name of the government without any perception of organization. That perception of organization then forces us to look more closely. We discover the one you put in. We check the social, economic, developmental value. It's cost less than 20%. Everybody cries foul.
Well, we need to start winding down now. Mr. Eko, quickly, let's look at budget padding. The legislature has denied that they pad the budget.
I've lost audio, yeah? Okay.
But
Sorry.
every year we hear that there's some sums that are added to the budget that was not part of what was sent to the legislature. My headache is, how are they able to get this money out of the system? So what is the benefit of padding for them?
Okay. So that we don't lose the real meat there, is by constitutional design.
Yes.
The executive cannot prepare the budget. You see, democracy is a very sweet system of government because it comes with its own check and balances. The executive arm of government prepares the budget, but this, your budget, is subjected to the approval of the legislators. Now, let's remember, who are the legislators? The legislators are the citizens.
Okay.
The legislators are all of us, right? Some of us are just there in the chamber representing the rest of us, right? Now, when it comes to us, the legislators, we have the power. Constitution gives us the power to review. When you have the power to review, it means that you can actually adjust. You can add or you can take away.
Okay.
The problem begins to come in when you are adding up to 11,000 new items. That is practically like me inviting a plumber to come and work in my house, and then you give me a bill, and then I was the one that was out telling you, oh, for this restroom you want to construct, you didn't put toilet seats, you didn't put wash and basin, or you put one wash and basin. No, I'm going to be needing 18 wash and basin in this 6 by 6 feet room. Right? That is what this means. And then it comes back to the credibility of the arm of government that prepares the budget in the first place. Because it is an indictment. Does that mean that you don't really have an understanding of what you are doing? So much so that when it came to us, we still have a space to insert 11,000 new lines. And then just like what Prof said, right? And then, okay, I've now inserted this 11,000 new lines, and then you give it back to me to implement, and I'm not challenging it, that this is not going to be implementable. So calling it budget padding, they will come and deny that it is not. But let's drive it down. Why does it look like that? Why are we making noise about this? Over the years, there are some agencies of government that are known to be where all of these unscrupulous insertions go to. Let's take the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security, for example. Every time, almost every year, when there are new insertions from the National Assembly, right, almost half of those new insertions will be to the Federal Ministry of Agriculture. What is happening there, right? So, of these 11,000 new insertions, 4,371 projects is to the Federal Ministry of Agriculture.
No, so tell us, what is happening in
so
the Ministry of Agriculture?
I will give you an example. There is an agency under the Federal Ministry of Agriculture. Let me just give you that one. That is called the National Center for Agricultural Mechanization, and it is based in Ilorin. By that definition, what should that agency be doing? Agricultural mechanization, right? But this agency, one of the projects that this agency is going to be implementing is a construction and equipping of 700 capacity ICT and CBT center in Kaduna State.
Agric.
And it is going to be costing 700 million. Now, what concerns agricultural mechanization with a CBT center that a JAM or a Ministry of Education should be handling? And this is where now, when we see things like this, we can then say, this is padding.
It's like my apologies, because we are running out of time. It's like you're telling us all to go get torchlights.
We need to get torchlights at this point.
And be exploring these things. We're totally out of time. But if you can, just your last words in 10 seconds.
Yeah, well, what I would say is that everyone on the other side who are leading us today should know that a time will come. You will leave that power, because power is transcends. People will definitely ask questions. This torchlight we're actually putting across will fetch certain things out. What we learned while we're growing up is that protect the name that you have. It can speak more of you when you no longer leave. But
like
I think that we have thrown that into the ocean, and it's about what I'm able to get for myself now, and it's not the
like
name.
you're already telling
we can
us.
always rewrite the name.
Yeah, you're telling us to balloon the torchlight manufacturing sector. Prof, 30 seconds, your takeaway.
Okay, I've actually made the points I need to make. I'll end on a lighter note. You started the program by talking about the girl who was shot by the police, and he wanted to shoot the tire and shot somebody. And your colleague Alero says she can do better even with the shooting. That means we have unknown gunmen in Anambra. Now we've won a known gun woman in Lagos called Alero. That's a note which
Alero, you have a work for yourself.
Okay. I hereby absolve myself of this conversation. I'm innocent of all charges. Thank you so much this morning, Prof. Professor K. Kechukwu is Executive Director, Development Specs Academy. And we've also had Olusegun Okwande, Chartered Accountant and Public Affairs Analyst, as well as Mr. Gabriel Okewo, who is Country Director, Budget Nigeria. The people with the big touch. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.